explosion changed the face of the Lehigh Valley forever. 5 people died when a large blast decimated a Concept Sciences building in Hanover Township. WFMZ's Jaccii Farris is live now in the studio with more. Jaccii?
A decade later, Concept Sciences is no longer in business. The site where the explosion happened has been rebuilt and is being used by another business. But the memory of what happened there remains.
Investigators are at it again today, trying to determine what caused a massive explosion that shook the Lehigh Valley on Friday night.
February 19th, 1999. A huge crater in mangled metal is all that remains of the Concept Sciences building in Hanover Township, Lehigh County. The company had just started processing a mixture of hydroxylamine and potassium sulfate.
Apparently during the, what we possibly think is during the distillation of this, something happened.
The resulting explosion had the force of 667 pounds of TNT, damaged surrounding buildings, and was felt miles away. 5 people were killed, 14 people were injured. John Conklin had just started as the Lehigh County emergency manager.
Whenever you get to the scene of something of this magnitude, you're sort of in awe. It takes you a moment to really gather your thoughts. And I think there were a lot of learning a lot of lessons learned that we had to take out of this. So I don't think we've had anything quite this severe maybe than some of the flooding from some of the recent hurricanes.
Concept Science was fined more than $250,000 for 20 safety violations, 11 of which were deemed deliberate. The families of those killed filed suit, as did the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. CSI settled those lawsuits. In 2000, state representatives T.J. Rooney and Steve Samuelson sponsored a bill that required companies to disclose their hazardous materials inventory to state and local authorities within 5 days of receiving them. Stay with 69 News throughout the day. We will have more on the 10th anniversary of the Concept Sciences explosion on 69 News at 5 and at 6. Hasiel?
Thank you, Jaccii. And as Jaccii said, stick with 69 News for continuing coverage of the Concept Sciences tragedy 10 years later tonight on 69 News starting at 5. We'll also have you covered at WFMZ.com, where you can even see newscasts from the day of the Concept Sciences explosion in 1999. The end is near for the nearly 4-month corruption trial of former state senator Vincent Fumo.
69 News, live at 5.
10 years ago, on an ordinary February evening like this one, something went horribly wrong inside a chemical plant in Lehigh County.
A deadly explosion leveled Concept Sciences in Hanover Township. The blast would go down in history as one of the Lehigh Valley's most devastating events.
WFMZ's Jaccii Farris is live in the newsroom with more. Jaccii?
Well, for those people who have lived in the valley for a while, you pretty much know where you were the day of the explosion. It's a day many will never forget. February 19th, 1999. Jocelyn Wedge had no idea at the time.
I was at home watching Comedy Central. We heard this big crack.
But that crack she heard was the Concept Sciences explosion that killed her brother Paul Wanamaker.
They knew something was wrong in there because the way chemicals were reacting. So they called him. When he went in, he told them there was nothing he could do. Everybody had to leave. That he was going to be the last one out and he never made it.
Daylight will soon show the devastation left behind a tremendous explosion that rocked the Lehigh Valley last night.
A huge crater in mangled metal greeted stunned emergency workers.
There was a substantial amount of collateral damage to the industrial buildings that immediately surrounded Concept Sciences.
It was quite an environmental nightmare above and beyond what everyone actually saw.
Chemical powder, building materials, and barrels of hazardous chemicals from the plant shot out everywhere. A dust cloud formed over the burning debris. The company had just started processing a mixture of hydroxylamine and potassium sulfate.
Apparently during the, what we possibly think is during the distillation of this, something happened.
The resulting explosion had the force of 667 pounds of TNT. 5 people were killed, including Paul Wanamaker, and 14 others were hurt. Concept Sciences was fined more than $250,000 for 20 safety violations, 11 of which were deemed to be deliberate. The families of those killed filed suit, as did the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection.
Now, in 2000, State Representative T.J. Rooney and Steve Samuelson sponsored a bill that required companies to disclose their hazardous materials inventory to state and local authorities within 5 days of receiving them. Now, before, they could have waited 90 days. And we'll have much more on this coming up tonight at 6. In the newsroom, Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
The scope of the explosion was larger than anything most emergency responders had ever dealt with.
And from the tragedy came change. WFMZ's Jaccii Farris reports.
And all of a sudden I heard this loud bang. I didn't know what had happened.
I thought our furnace blew up in the basement.
The dispatcher telling me there had been an explosion. There was emotion in his voice.
Get into uniform and travel to the scene.
A huge crater and mangled metal was all that was left when the dust from the explosion at Concept Sciences in Hanover Township settled.
There was a substantial amount of collateral damage to the industrial buildings that immediately surrounded Concept Sciences.
It was quite an environmental nightmare above and beyond, what everyone actually saw.
Chemical powder, building materials, and barrels of hazardous chemicals from the plant shot out everywhere. A dust cloud formed over the burning debris. 5 people were killed, 14 were injured.
None of us knew exactly what happened within the confines of Concept Sciences or what the chemicals were that were within Concept Sciences.
One of the things that had been on the books prior to this explosion was chemical companies did not have to release what chemicals they had on their premises for 90 days.
Investigators later determined the distilling of a hydroxylamine and potassium sulfate mixture resulted in the explosion. Concept Sciences was fined for 20 safety violations. In 2000, Pennsylvania lawmakers passed a bill requiring companies to disclose their hazardous materials inventory within 5 days of receiving them. Emergency crews who worked the explosion say their training prepared them to respond. But with the new laws, now they have a better idea of what they're responding to. Jaccii Farris, 69 News.